बिहारी माधव कुंज बिहार। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। प्रभुपाद जय शील प्रभुपाद जय जय। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शतशिष्य श्रीमद हिज डिवाइन ग्रेस श्री भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी शील प्रभुपाद की जय। इस्कॉन फाउंडर आचार्य बीबीटी फाउंडर आचार्य सेवर ऑफ द होल वर्ल्ड शील प्रभुपाद की जय। जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शतशिष्य श्रीमद हिज डिवाइन ग्रेस भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर गोस्वामी महाराज शील प्रभुपाद की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। ब्रजभूमि वृंदावन धाम की जय। नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जय। पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। गंगा मैया यमुना मैया की जय। भक्ति देवी तुलसी महारानी की जय। सामवेद गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। पतित पावन हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। श्री श्री रुक्मिणी द्वारकाधीश की जय। श्री श्री रुक्मिणी द्वारकानाथ की जय। श्री श्री जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा महारानी की जय। श्री श्री गौर निताय की जय। शील प्रभुपाद की जय। शील प्रभुपाद ट्रांसेंडेंटल बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे। All glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Ruttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtike Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 26, Fundamental Principles of Material Nature, Text 16. prabhāvaṁ pauruṣaṁ prāhuḥ kālameke yato bhayam ahaṅkāra-vimūḍhasya kartuḥ prakṛtim īyuṣaḥ prabhāvaṁ pauruṣaṁ prāhuḥ kālameke yato bhayam ahaṅkāra-vimūḍhasya kartuḥ prakṛtim īyuṣaḥ prabhāvaṁ pauruṣaṁ prāhuḥ kālameke yato bhayam ahaṅkāra-vimūḍhasya kartuḥ prakṛtim īyuṣaḥ. kālameke yato bhayam ahaṅkāra-vimūḍhasya kartuḥ prakṛtim īyuṣaḥ. prabhāvaṁ pauruṣaṁ prāhuḥ kālameke yato bhayam ahaṅkāra-vimūḍhasya kartuḥ prakṛtim īyuṣaḥ. Vaishnavis. prabhāvaṁ pauruṣaṁ prāhuḥ kālameke yato bhayam ahaṅkāra-vimūḍhasya prakṛtim īyuṣaḥ. prabhāvaṁ pauruṣaṁ prāhuḥ kālameke yato bhayam ahaṅkāra-vimūḍhasya kartuḥ prakṛtim īyuṣaḥ. Prabhāvam, the influence, pauruṣaṁ, of the personality of Godhead, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Prāhuḥ, they have said. Kālam, the time factor. Eke, some. Yataḥ, from which. Bhayam, fear. ahaṅkāra-vimūḍhasya, deluded by the false ego. Kartuḥ, of the individual soul. Prakṛtim, material nature. īyuṣaḥ, having contacted. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace is Bhaktivedanta Swami Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. Translation. The influence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is felt in the time factor, which causes fear of death due to the false ego of the deluded soul who has contacted material nature. Purport. The living entity's fear of death is due to his false ego of identifying with the body. Everyone is afraid of death. Actually, there is no death for the spirit soul, but due to our absorption in the identification of the body as a self, the fear of death develops. It is also stated in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 11.2.37, bhayam dvitīyābhiniveśataḥ syāt. Dvitīya refers to matter, which is beyond spirit. Matter is the secondary manifestation of spirit, for matter is produced from spirit. Just as material elements described are caused by the Supreme Lord or the Supreme Spirit, the body is also a product of spirit soul. Therefore, the material body is called Dvitīya, or the second. One who is absorbed in this second element or second exhibition of spirit is afraid of death. When one is fully convinced that he is not his body, there is no question of fearing death, since the spirit soul does not die. If the spirit soul engages in the spiritual activities of devotional service, he is completely freed from the platform of birth and death. His next position is complete spiritual freedom from a material body. The fear of death is the action of kala, or the time factor, which represents the influence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, time is destructive. Whatever is created is subject to destruction and dissolution, which is the action of time. Time is a representation of the Lord, and it reminds us also that we must surrender unto the Lord. The Lord speaks to every conditioned soul as time. He says in Bhagavad Gita that if someone surrenders unto him, then there is no longer any problem of birth and death. We should therefore accept the time factor as the Supreme Personality of Godhead standing before us. This is further explained in following verse. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupah Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guruho Shri Yutapatakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha. Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Stam Sajivam Sadhvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paśyatya Deshatarine He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dīnabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Mukham karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yatkripatamaham vande Shri Guru Dīnatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hare Krishna. So I seek blessings of all devotees so that I can speak something glorifying Lord for all of your pleasure and for my purification. So here Kapila Muni is addressing Devavati's questions, and after explaining the 24 elements, now he is speaking about time. Today's verse, it says, the influence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is felt in the time factor, which causes fear of death due to the false ego of deluded soul who has contacted material nature. So we'll see three things. First, why this fear of death. Second, is understanding of only that I am not body, I am spirit, soul. Is that sufficient to get away from this fear? And third, approach of devotees towards death. So first point about fear. Prabhupada very the start it says the living entity's fear of death is due to his false ego of identifying with the body. Okay. So when one thinks that he is body, then he gets this fear of death. The reason the matter is actually dead, and then there is this false identification wherein one thinks that if I lose this body, then whatever I have connected with the body, family, friends, possessions, designations, everything I will lose. So that misidentification is what is, what it leads to the fear. Because if we see, the matter is by nature dead and spirit is by nature blissful, right? So when person dies, basically matter is going into matter. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, they are just getting decomposed. Spirit soul is anyway eternal. So where is this suffering coming from? Right? Matter is dead, no consciousness. Spirit is always blissful. So who is suffering here? The spirit soul thinks that he is a body. That brings him into suffering. Like in a dream, a lion is chasing us and person is sweating and gets up. So the person is thinking that actual lion is coming, but there is no lion, right? So same way, when one misidentifies oneself with this body, then there is a fear of death. And Prabhupada is quoting this beautiful verse, bhayam dvitīyābhiniveśataḥ syāt, from 11th canto. So wherein, dvitīya is referred to the matter, the second manifestation of spirit. So this is very, clear. Okay, that I think that I am this body. That's why I have this fear of losing, and there is a fear of death because of that, right? And Krishna also says, mrityuh sarvaharsham. As a death, I come and take away everything. What is taking away? Spirit soul is still there, right? He is Sachidananda. So that misidentification is leading to this fear. Okay. There was once one devotee was giving this lecture on this science of soul. We are not this body, we are spirit soul. But this one person, after this whole discussion, he raises a hand, question. He said, what? He said, okay, you are saying that we are not this body. He said, if I am not my body, then I am whose body? So the people are so deep rooted in this conception that we are this body, it's very difficult to separate it out. Okay. Now even if some understand, so we come to the second point, then is the understanding of just I am not this body, I am spirit soul, can it make us fearless? Sridhar Swami in his commentary to this verse bhayam dvitiyam, he says that the ignorance is leading to this false identification. So then can the knowledge of just that we are not this body, we are spirit self, can it free us? And he says no. He said, even if somebody says, aham brahmasmi, aham brahmasmi, and goes up to the Brahma Jyoti, merges into impersonal Brahman, still one is not completely fearless. Why? If he is fearless, he will stay in that position for eternity. But aruya kruchena param padam tata apatanti yadha, he falls down. So Prabhupada very nicely mentions that the living entity is by nature pleasure seeking, ānandamayo-bhyāsāt, right? And now we are suffering because we are falsely seeking pleasure on material platform, and as a result we are becoming entangled in the painful complexity of material existence. But when we try to give up and merge it with Brahman, still that Ananda element is missing. That pleasure seeking. See, the Brahman is just cessation of misery. There is no misery, but then there is no active pleasure. Okay, if somebody is beating us, so this famous example, right? Previous days, what they used to do for a criminal, they used to take him in a boat and dip him in water. And when he is about to die, he used to pull it up, and he was, so he used to feel that relief, right? And then again, they used to ask him, do that interrogation. If he doesn't give answer, dip in water. When he's about to lose his breath, pull him. So that, so that feeling is Brahman basically. There is no active pleasure there. It is just there is no misery. So because there is no misery, patanti adha, one again comes back. So Sridhar Swami refutes that just having the knowledge that I am not this body, I am spirit soul, will not take us away from this ultimate fear, fearful situation. Okay. So then what is solution? So there Sridhar Swami is explaining that when one actually engages in devotional service, that is the time when one becomes actually fearless. Okay. So now we will come to the third point. So first we saw that there is a fear because misidentification with the body. Second, we saw that just understanding that we are not spirit soul, we are not body, we are spirit soul is not enough, because that's also state, Brahman state is not joy giving basically. The soul has to come back because he is pleasure seeking. So the only way is when we actually engage in devotional service. Prabhupada gives this example, like hand's purpose is to serve body. If the hand says, I won't give this gulab jam to mouth, he tries to play around it, he will not get any pleasure. But when he puts it in the mouth, he gets pleasure, he gets strength, right? Because he is serving the whole, he is serving the stomach, right? Like in all the senses they are serving stomach, because of which they are getting nourishment and strength. So same way, as a part and parcel of Krishna, when we serve Krishna, we naturally feel that happiness. And that we see in so many devotees' life. And one who is not devotee, Chaitanya Charitamrita, it mentions nicely, Chaitanya rahita deha shuka kashtha sama jivite martasei maile dandayama. Person without Krishna consciousness is no better than dry wood or a dead body. He is understood to be dead while living, and after death he is punished by Yamraj. Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami is explaining that. So now we will see what is the when devotees they engage in devotional service, they are least bothered about death. So we'll see devotees approach towards death, and then how they leave their bodies, right? So Dhruva Maharaj, it's mentioned in Bhagavatam that when he saw that aeroplane is coming, he worshipped all the sages, he paid them obeisances, and then he put his feet on the head of death and ascended. So basically what he was doing here, he continued doing there. It was just climbing we are going for Harinam Sankirtan, we climb our white matador, right? We are just stepping up, going. So that's the devotees are least concerned about leaving their present bodies. Of course, that doesn't mean that devotees can commit suicide. For that matter, nobody should. Sanatana Goswami, when he was in Jagannath Puri, he saw that his body was he had this particular disease because he drank some contaminated water. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to come and try to embrace him. So he used to feel very bad, And one day he thought that I'll go and put myself below the cart of Jagannath's, wheel of Jagannath's cart, and that way I'll give up my body. He was thinking like that. And then next day Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes and he suddenly starts speaking, oh Sanatan, what do you think? That just by committing suicide, can you attain Krishna? If that is the case, I would have killed myself so many times. He said, So it is not by giving up body can say that we'll attain Krishna. Somebody may say, I have heard now antakalecha mame smaran mukta kalevram, right? At the time of death, whatever one remembers, go to that particular place. So let me do all nonsense, then take a gun. Hare Krishna. Will we go back? Doubtful, No, rather, because it says smaran, So there is a difference between chanting and remembering. I may be chanting Hare Krishna, I may be thinking of something else, right? So, like in the war, generally, whenever there is this acute pain and soldiers are about to die, they generally shout, of whatever thing it's very dear to them. Either they'll call out, Mama, Papa, or whatever they are, thinking of. So, what Krishna is referring to is, at the time of death, we should be able to take shelter of him. We should, remember, not just, do a parrot. Parrot also, Hare Krishna. But, you might be, thinking why this person is killing me, right? So, whatever we have been taking shelter throughout our life, when I am in pain, am I opening Bhagavatam or I am opening Facebook Reels? Psh, psh, next. Right? So depending on that, so that is where I am taking shelter of. Or I am, going to, get a bottle of wine or, whatever. So, just saying that, I'll remember Krishna at the time of death and go back, it's not that easy. Because outwardly we may be able to even say his name, but are we really taking shelter? Are we really remembering? That's the point. On the other hand, if we have been trying to take shelter of Krishna throughout life, then even we have a sudden death because of some reason, accident or some trauma or whatever, we don't have to worry. Srila Prabhupada mentioned, Lord Chaitanya will force his remembrance in your, in your consciousness. So, the devotees, by practicing the devotional service, they will make themselves eligible, or they'll make themselves ready for this experience of leaving this body, because it's not easy. It's not easy. When you go to our yearly physical checkup and then the doctor takes out the blood and that needle comes near, you say Hare Krishna, we try to remember all shlokas, chant Narasimha-arti, right? It's painful. And then if see here in generally the hospital also, if we visit, they are very posh, things are very nice. If you really want to see what misery is, sometimes you can go in general hospital in India, you visit. How people are suffering, we can visibly see actually. Here also we see sometimes, people, homeless people going around. We can see they are suffering actually. So, this death factor, mrityus sarvaharashchaham. Krishna is going to approach everybody, so either you approach him lovingly or he will approach you as a time factor, Ayurharati vaipumsam uddam matstanchayannasau yasyarte yatkshanon nita uttama shloka vartaya. That for everyone rather, which each rising of a sun, we are one day closer to death, as sure as death. Are devotees pessimistic? No, they are realistic. They are realistic and they know the solution also, what to do, right? So, with every rising of a sun, when the non-devotees make their plan and go around with their life, they are getting closer one by one day to death, and ultimately getting into this complex cycle of reactions of their own karmic activities. But for a devotee, it is one day closer to Krishna. What we are doing here, chanting, dancing, eating prasad, discussing about Krishna's pastime, we'll continue doing that, only in better body, only in spiritual body, right? Spiritual body. So, therefore, devotees are, they are not afraid of death. At the same time, they don't take it granted also. Devotee won't go and stand, they are going for Harinam and then that metro, or that signal, comes down. Devotee says, no, anyway, I am not this body, I am spirit soul, let me just walk away. Even if metro hits me, who cares? No. Devotees do whatever is needful to protect their bodies so that they can continue serving in the capacity they have currently. At the same time, if things if we see that things doesn't work, they are not working, it's fine. They raise their hands, Hare Krishna, let me chant and remember Krishna's name. And then we have examples of how devotees leave their bodies, Classic example, Bhishma Pitamaha. He fought, and if he wanted, he could, he had a boon, unless he wants, nobody can kill him. And he was in such that, painful situation wherein he's lying on the bed of arrows. There's not even an inch of space between two arrows, actually. It was pierced everywhere. But in that condition, he was so crystal clear in his thought process that he could dispel all the doubt that Yudhishthir Maharaj had. Yudhishthir Maharaj was feeling guilty that, because of him, so many people were killed. And not only that he made him console, and then when the right time came, this Tribhuvana Kamanam Kamalanayam, that seeing Krishna in front of him, remembering that when he was shooting arrows towards Arjuna, Krishna could not bear that, Arjuna is getting defeated. He gets down, he picks up the wheel of the chariot, and he is rushing towards, Bhishma, while Bhishma is still shooting the arrows, and when he was about to hit that, the wheel of chariot, which was actually, got manifested into chakra to Bhishma, putting his bow and arrow down, and he said, Krishna, please hit. So he was remembering that particular form, glorifying Krishna, seeing his beautiful face, he leaves his body. What a death. Same way Haridas Thakur. One day Chaitanya Mahaprabhu goes, he says, what's the news, Haridas? He says, oh Lord, my body is good, but my mind is not good because I could not finish my rounds. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, oh, Haridas, you have chanted so much, there is no need for you to count. If our spiritual master says to us, first thing he'll do is put a bit bag aside, right? Of course, they won't say us, but and of course, all of you won't do. I may do, but Haridas Thakur, he was unhappy because he could not complete his 300,000 names. And then next day he says that, oh Lord, I have one benediction, he said. What he pays obeisances to all devotees, and he says, I cannot bear separation, because Haridas Thakur knew that Lord is going to wind his pastime. So he, with Lord's lotus feet on his chest, seeing the beautiful face of Lord, Haridas Thakur leaves back to spiritual world. So this is the standard, the way devotees leave their body. And for devotees, when they leave their body, Bhaktivinoda Thakur famously has written that Vaishnavas never die. Thou art still living in sound. Vaishnava dies to live, and while living, spread holy names. So for devotees, Srila Prabhupada also, we see that he said, I'm not afraid of death. Even in his falling age, somebody said that they have arranged program in London, and Prabhupada was ready to go. Right? He said, I won't care where I leave my body. All the normal Vaishnavas, their tendencies in their old age, they rushed to Vrindavan to stay. Prabhupada rushed out of Vrindavan. Why? Thou art still living in sound. Vaishnavas live to die, and while living, spread the holy names. So, for a devotee, they do the needful to protect their bodies, but they are least bothered about death, because they know that it is just one step, which is one step closer to Krishna. So, to summarize, we saw that Kapil Muni here is mentioning the cause of fear is time factor, it creates fear in everybody. And the reason for this fear is because spirit soul misidentifies himself with the body. So this misidentification leads to fearful situation. But understanding that the only understanding that, okay, I am not this body, I am spirit soul, that is also not sufficient, because one may go up to Brahman, but from there also he has to come down, because the nature of spirit soul is ānandamayo-abhyāsāt, pleasure seeking. So therefore the only remediation to get out of this fearful situation completely is practice of devotional service. And then we saw, how Dhruva Maharaj left his body, he just says, it's just a stepping stone, and how these devotees saw that, we should not go for suicide, because that's, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, that doesn't give us Krishna Prem. We are there to, our goal is ultimately to get Krishna Prem, so for that, we use this body in service, practicing devotional service. We try to preserve it as much as possible. If not, we just give it, whatever Krishna wants it to happen, and then continue the further journey. There is another beautiful example, is that of Vritrasura, wherein when he was about to actually, kill Indra, he was so powerful that Indra had threw the thunderbolt, he just slapped it back to him. The elephant went some, 100 yojanas somewhere, and, Indra became so shattered that he just sat. He said, I cannot fight, Vritrasura, you just come and kill me, I'm done with the battle. So he did a prep talk, Indra, get up, Lord Vishnu has given you this weapon, it can't go fail. So he said, let's do one thing, I'll sit in meditation, you take the vajra and, cut my neck, And then he sat, and it said it took a year for Indra to cut his neck actually. So, but what in that meantime, Vritrasura was doing, he was just, Ajata paksha iva mataram khagaha stanyam yatha vatsa rata kshudhartha priyam priyeva vishutam vishanna manoravindaksha didrikshate tvam, aham hare tava padaika moolam dasanu daso bhavitasma bhuyah manasmaret asupate gunaste gunitava karma karotu kaya. What Vritrasura's prayers praying, He said, oh Lord, as a calf waiting for his mother, as a chaste wife waiting for his husband, as a baby bird waiting for the mother bird to come and feed, when can I see, your lotus feet? Let me be servant of your servant. So that was the consciousness at the time of death. So when we have that consciousness, then, why not? Vritrasura went back to spiritual world. Indra kept enjoying in the material world. So, Haridas Thakur, Bhishma Dev, Vritrasura, Dhruva Maharaj, all these devotees, they have shown us how to die. And also there's, in contemporary way, Prabhupada disciples, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, die before you die. The way he said, he wanted to tell that, wherever Prabhupada has established the places, they are not different from Vrindavan. So he chose to leave his body in Gita Nagari. He wanted to prove that, yes, and then when the devotees chanting, he left, So we'll end with one prayer, as Prabhupada also quoted this so many times, wherein King Kulashekar, he prays that Krishna tvadiya padapankaja panjarantam adyaiva me vishatu manasa rajahamsa prana prayana samaye kafavata pitte kantavarodhana vidau smaranam kutaste. So Kulashekar Maharaj, he is saying that let me die at this moment when I am able to think of you, Lord. Let my swan of my mind be entangled in the stem of your lotus feet. So the Krishna's lotus feet triangle, right? So let my mind get entangled there, because at the time of death, when my throat will be choked up with, mucus and bile and whatnot, how I will be able to remember you. So devotees are not worried about death or any situation. They are more about whether they are able to remember Krishna or not. So let's pray in this mood of Kulashekar. Of course, not to leave our bodies, but to let our mind get entangled, and then continue in the service that Srila Prabhupada has given us, so that towards the end of life, we'll be happily able to remember Lord and His devotees. So with that, would like to stop. Any questions or comments? Yes, Prabhuji. Yeah.
Yeah, you were mentioning it's not simply a matter of chanting the Lord's name at the time of death, but we have to remember Him. But what about like that, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita mentions that one Muslim who was attacked by a boar and he chanted the name of the Lord and he got liberated.
Yeah. So actually that is, so there are two aspects. One, it shows this, the power of holy name, wherein it, even though it is chanted in an abhava stage, right? Like there is this Ajamila pastime wherein Yamaraj is explaining that, even if the holy name chanted in the mood of, what do you say, as a funny way, or to to make a fun of it, or just unconsciously, or just as a bystander, still it will have its own effect. So there, that particular story, pastime is mentioned to indicate the potency of holy name. But that doesn't mean that the scenario which I was trying to explain is that I cannot say that I'll do all the nonsense and take a gun and say chant Hare Krishna and then kill myself. So that particular incident was wherein that fellow was actually helpless, and in that he shouted out that whatever he had to shout out. So we don't, again, it's not so external to say, I chanted by saying this name of Lord Ram. Like another example, even same from CC, wherein there was this Ram Das who came along with Rupa Goswami, right? He was always chanting the name of Lord Ram, and Lord Chaitanya did not even look at him, because his goal was to become one with Lord Ram. So there he was actually chanting the name, but the motive and desire was something different, right? So those pastimes are mentioned in scriptures, like that of Ajamil, that person chanting, Haram. That is to mention, that is to specify the potency of holy name. But that doesn't mean that, what you say, that smaran factor, that, this remembering factor is, ignored. So those are like, special cases given to glorify the holy name actually. Does that clarify, Prabhu?
Yeah, because I just read different things about that, like Srila Prabhu mentioned Jayananda, he was hearing the holy name at the time of his death, put his ear next to the Prabhu chanting Hare Krishna. So Prabhu said he went back to Godhead. It just seems like if you just hear or you chant, that just doing that, I mean, you can't think that, I'm just going to chant Hare Krishna and do all nonsense, and maybe I'm not be able to chant at all like that. So I'm just.
Yeah. Yes, we want to add Archita Prabhu. Yeah.
Just on that last pastime that Rabindranath, bring this one down, it's a little too loud. On that last pastime that Rabindranath mentioned, Prabhupada didn't just say that he went back to God, he said, but if he had some desire to enjoy, then he would go to the heavenly planets and stay there for some time and then go back to God. So the desire in your heart also factors into it. It's not just the fact that I died in front of devotees and they were chanting. What's going on internally is not necessarily shown externally. So Prabhupada mentioned that, yes, based on how he told me that he left his body, he may have gone back to God. But if he had some iota of desire to enjoy in the material world, he would go first to the heavenly planets. So that possibility is there. It's not just externally what's happening and then you just go.
Yeah. You have something else, Prabhuji? Yeah. Okay. Actually, to that point, I also, thank you, Prabhu, that it is said that when we go to spiritual world, we are taken from all the, hellish planets, heavenly planets, Brahmaloka. We are shown everything, actually. And if at any moment we think, it looks good, we are dropped there only, and then the plane goes. So, yeah, that's very true. It's all internal, depends on it. Yes.
Also, Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, 8th chapter, Abhasya Yoga Yuktena. Srila Prabhupada specifically mentions in that purport that there needs to be practice. It's not that you just remember Krishna at the time of death. It's not so easy. So there needs to be that Abhasya Yoga Yuktena. There needs to be an effort while we're living to prepare ourselves, prepare our consciousness. Circumstances like a Jamil, like you were saying, they glorify the potency of the holy name, but the general process
Yeah.
is that there needs to be a very sincere practice during the life in order for there to be remembrance at death.
Yeah. See, Krupa Siddha. So these all incidences are Krupa Siddha. Like, see, when Ramanujacharya once he was taking prasad, and then he washed his hand in the Pushkarani, the pond. So the fishes, they ate the Mahaprasad from his hand, the leftovers. They got a 400 Vishnu forms and went back to spiritual world in front of all. Now his disciples, they had been eating his prasad. The two hands did not appear. So this is called Krupa Siddhas. So these incidences are there to tell that Lord, if he wants, devotees like Prahlad Maharaj, if they want, they can deliver the whole universe. Like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, right? When Murari Gupta, right? He says that I want the karma of everyone to come on me and you deliver everyone. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, yes, whole universe delivered, What difference it makes if one mustard seed is gone from the bag of mustard seed. So Lord and his devotees, they have this amazing potency to give causeless mercy, Krupa Siddha, and liberate everyone. But as you mentioned, the general practice is Sadhana Siddha. We do our part and then wait for the mercy. Yes, Prabhu.
It just kind of reminded me of Ajamil. He lived a very simple life, and just because he named his son Narayan, at the time of death he chanted, but he wasn't referring to Krishna, he was just referring to his son. So still he got the benefit because he had one more birth.
Yeah.
And in that next birth, he went back home, back to Godhead.
Yeah.
So that is the potency of the holy name.
Yeah.
Regardless of how you chant it,
Yeah.
there is a benefit. And as you said, it may go to the heavenly planets. But on his case, he just took another birth and went back to Godhead.
Yeah. Thank you. Say, Grantara Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai, Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande.